Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about a new Stephen King adaptation. I know we've had a lot of these recently. I know 2025 alone has had tons of Stephen King film adaptations that have happened over the year. But we are on to basically the Running Man reboot. This is more so a reboot than a remake of that Arnold Schwarzenegger film from the 80s. They were both based off of a Stephen King novel, which he published under Richard Bachman, which he kind of used for which Stephen King used for novels at the time that he wasn't sure how people were going to react to it publicly. So he went by kind of a secret alias at the time, which was Richard Bachman. But in this movie, though, you guys, and similar to the novel of The Running Man, even more so closer than what the Arnold Schwarzenegger version did, we do follow a man played by Ben Richards, called Ben Richards is his name, and he's played by Glen Powell. And basically, there is a game show in the future that a lot of people watch, like millions of people tune in for it. It's called The Running Man. And with Ben Richards, he's in a position where his daughter is very ill and they need basically medical attention for her and a very good doctor that knows what they're doing. And to get this in this future, basically, they have something called old dollars and new dollars. And so basically, new dollars are basically the way of basically buying anything. So basically, new dollars are kind of not even worth anything. And so basically, to get the enough new dollars to basically get her the medical attention that she needs, Ben Richards not only needs a good paying job, he needs basically money quickly because the illness is spreading in her body very quickly. And so, obviously, with not a lot of jobs available, he tries out for this Running Man show, and he's able to get in right away because of his charisma and kind of his anger management. He seems to have more punch than some of these other contestants do. And so, basically, he gets in very quickly. He basically, any kind of application process they were looking for, he passes through it very quickly. And so, on the show, he basically has to survive 30 days out in the real world. They're not even sent into arena. They are sent into the real world, unlike the Arnold Schwarzenegger version. And basically, they can find disguises. They can make fake aliases. They can, check into hotels, go to restaurants, do all this other stuff that they normally are able to do out in the real world. But the twist is basically any assassin, any hunter, any real world person that is able to kind of notice that they are from the Running Man show can basically hunt them down legally. The police are not going to come after them or anything, and basically hunt them down. And so basically, whoever does hunt them down successfully wins the money prize instead. But obviously, the Glen Powell character, this Ben Richards character that he plays, really is trying to win this $1 billion grand prize so that his daughter can get the help that she needs for her medical attention. And so this happens over the course of The Running Man. But overall, guys, I enjoyed this film. I didn't absolutely love The Running Man. There's certainly things about it that I really enjoyed. I've also, for the most part, really enjoyed a lot of Edgar Wright's other films. That's the director of this movie. I really enjoyed Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, as well as Baby Driver. And Last Night in Soho, I thought was pretty good as well. He's done a lot of other films too, but those are kind of three films from him in particular that I fondly remember of. I think I even reviewed those on my channel at one point or another, and have really enjoyed all of those films. And yeah, I'm very happy to report that The Running Man, his new reboot of it, is another great Edgar Wright film on his resume. A lot of people seem to be really hit or miss with this movie. There's a lot of critics that seem to really like it, while others really don't like it. I'm in the camp of that. I really enjoyed the film. I really enjoyed it for what it was. And I also thought the Running Man concept from Stephen King has always been a really interesting one. So I've always been kind of interested to see, ever since this movie got announced, how they were going to redo The Running Man again and kind of see if they were going to be more loyal to the book and bring new ideas to it. And I think they thankfully are able to do both of those things. So for my positives and negatives of The Running Man, for the most part, this is a very fun, globe-trotting concept for a movie. I really like the idea of sending the contestants out into the real world this time. They're not just sent into this big arena like they were in that previous Arnold Schwarzenegger version. They are sent out to the real world. They can check into hotels. They can become friends with people. They can make up fake aliases, costumes as well, and can really kind of turn the Running Man into their own game if they choose to do it that way. They can get weapons and all this other stuff if they choose to. Just a really fun concept for a movie. And like I said, I really like the whole globe-trotting element that they incorporated this time around. I thought that was a much more playful, adventurous way to adapt The Running Man as opposed to what they did with the previous version of the story. I also really do think Glen Powell has a lot of star charisma now. We've seen him in other great projects like Top Gun Maverick and Hitman and a bunch of other stuff now at this point. I really do think he is a great leading man actor at this point. He really has nothing more to prove to me. He really is a great leading star actor for a movie. I know the idea of a movie star is kind of a dead idea at this point, but I do think there are leading actors that are kind of an exciting choice for a movie. And I think Glen Powell has definitely entered that race of whenever he's announced to be a main star of a film, I think we could easily be very excited to go and see his films. So I think The Running Man proved that he definitely has the power to lead his own movie, be the main cast member of the film, and to carry the film any way that he chooses to. And for the most part, too, and Edgar Wright's always been really good about this, too. I really feel like the action scenes are very good here. I really feel like Edgar Wright's good at choreographing good action scenes, keeping everything in frame. He doesn't use shaky cam. He's good about making things feel kinetic and energetic and keeping stuff in the frame that we would want to see it. And so I do like how he is a very good action director. So once again, The Running Man proves that he's able to film some great action scenes here, and he does a great job with that. I also like the use of drone cameras this time around. They use a lot of these flying drone cameras to basically try to capture where Glen Powell is, and so that the hunters and the assassins and even the viewers of the Running Man show can kind of see what he's up to in certain scenarios throughout the show and throughout these 30 days of him being on the loose out in the world. And I just thought the use of drone cameras was very interesting this time around as to how they were trying to incorporate that into the story. I also thought the film had a lot to say about AI and reality television, how there's a lot of stuff they do on reality television to kind of expose a person or to get viewership, and it's commentary on reality television, how it really is willing to kind of ruin a person's life for everybody else's entertainment. Unfortunately, I think that is kind of the real state of reality television. I think The Running Man has an interesting way of portraying that idea. And the overall use of artificial intelligence, how we're able to, turn in a video somewhere, but then someone's able to alter it through editing and through AI and make it sound like they're saying something that's completely different from what you said. I thought that was very interesting, how, even when a TV program is trying to air something on TV and how they want to alter it to make their needs so that they can have more viewership rather than what the person is trying to say to the general public. I thought all that stuff was very interesting, how the film was able to portray that. I also thought the film's view on the future was very interesting. I like how Edgar Wright went with the idea of, cars kind of look the same, but there's features about them that are, more advanced than what we have now. There's, cars where they basically drive you around. You don't have to drive them yourself anymore. But I do like the idea that a lot of this future looks like the future that's kind of now, but it has a couple advancements that we quite haven't seen yet. So I like how Edgar Wright didn't overreach what the future could look like. I like how he kind of kept things grounded, kept things to kind of what 2025 looks like a little bit, while also kind of advancing the street lights, making the cars look a little bit neater, while not really going like full Jetsons mode or anything like that. So I thought his view on the future, I thought, was very catchy and interesting. And then I brought this up earlier. I really like how Edgar Wright has a very kinetic energy to his films. It always feels like something's moving and something's always going on. Something is always in motion, whether it's going to the camera or away from it. He's very good about having a very kinetic energy to his films. And I don't know what he does to get his actors revved up for the set for the day, but I feel like every cast member, specifically in this film in particular, had a very energetic feel to it. And you can definitely feel that as you're watching the film. But for my negatives of The Running Man, I thought there was just some unclear rules and easy getaways that Glen Powell runs into. There's just a lot of times where it almost feels like almost everybody he runs into is trying to help him out. And after a while, I think if the rules really were, if they are a contestant on the show and if you find them out in public, you can record them, you can try to kill them yourself. And I just feel like if that really was the case of this Running Man show, I feel like more people would be participating, more people would, try to kill off the Glen Powell character, get the money themselves. And I also do feel like there's this whole rule too that they got to follow where they have to submit these diary tapes every day so we can kind of see what's going on, see how their reaction is, see what they have to say after each and every day leading up to day 30 of the competition. And there's just times where I think he has to submit them by midnight. So if he doesn't submit one by midnight, he gets disqualified from the show. And so there's times in the movie where like it's like 10 minutes to midnight and he's escaping this really bad scenario and he's still somehow able to submit the tape before midnight hits. And there's stuff like that that really is kind of cheesy throughout the film. So there's just some unclear rules and some clean getaways that the film tries to get away with that don't really feel very earned in the movie. I also thought some of the network ideas, how people tune into cable television. I thought some of those ideas feel kind of outdated compared to today's standard. I would have preferred kind of if The Running Man was like maybe a big hit show that you could stream live on streaming or something like that. I think that would be a little bit more relevant to today's culture. I really can't see a future where people resort back to cable television, and I think that's the direction this film was trying to go in, and how people were living off of cable TV and stuff. So that aspect of the story feels a little dated. You can tell Stephen King wrote this novel in the early 80s. And so that's one aspect of the story I thought they could have updated a little bit more, because I feel more people are tuning into streaming now as opposed to network television. I also thought the film didn't really play off of Glen Powell's anger management very much. It's just kind of a trait that's introduced early on in the movie, and they never really explain how Glen Powell has this or what eggs him on, or if there was something that happened at a job with him earlier on in his life, or a personal tragedy that happened in his life that makes him like that. It's just a weird characteristic they added to his character that really kind of didn't feel needed. And so I thought that it was one aspect of the story that they included in the movie that really kind of didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. I also thought the third act of the film was very messy. It was trying to be tragic and scary, yet funny and science fiction-y, and it just felt all over the place. I really would have preferred a third act that felt a little more clean cut. I know what they were trying to do. Clearly, they weren't trying to be exactly like the book, because that would be too tragic. For those who know the book, you know what I'm talking about. I won't say what it is otherwise. And then they're trying to not make it too happy ending-ish, like the way that the Arnold Schwarzenegger version was. They're trying to kind of balance both worlds. And I felt like, even though maybe this is probably the better version of the ending that we got for this story, it still feels like it is just trying to do a little bit too much, more than what it can balance all in the same time. And I just felt the overall third act was just a little too messy for my taste. I also thought the tone of the movie overall too was pretty unclear. There's times where it's trying to be a comedy, there's times where it's trying to be a horror film, and there's times where it's trying to be an action movie. And I feel like it can't really balance all those worlds at the same time very well. So I just felt like they really should have decided early on what kind of film they were trying to make. Is it going to be goofier than the Arnold Schwarzenegger one? Is it going to be more serious? And if it is going to be more serious, how can we do humorous bits without going full-blown comedy? I just felt like the film overall couldn't really find a clear tone of what it was trying to go with. And you can kind of tell by the time the final product is over that clearly the filmmakers couldn't really decide either. And I also overall thought there were some characters in the film that were very underwritten. I thought the wife character in particular, the woman that's married to Glen Powell, really didn't get a lot to do in the movie. And I also thought the William H. Macy character that helps him out early on in the film, where the game show starts, and he's trying to make a new alias and a new costume for himself. He really doesn't get a lot to do in the movie, unfortunately. And he was kind of heavily marketed in the film. There's even kind of a little Marcus Theater thing with him and Greg Marcus at one point that they did. And he really isn't in the film very often. And so I thought that was kind of weird that both the wife and the William H. Macy are even like featured on the posters and the marketing and all this other stuff. And neither one of them are really in the movie for very long. And so I thought that was kind of a weird way to write those characters in and kind of feature them so much in the marketing. And they're not really the only ones. There is other characters in the film that are really really badly underwritten. I even thought some of the other contestants that are competing on the Running Man at the same time that Glen Powell is, I thought that were very underwritten as well. But overall, guys, I'm going to give The Running Man an 8.5 out of 10. I thought it was a very good reboot slash remake of the Arnold Schwarzenegger film. It really kind of does its own thing, finds its own path. There is good things about it, but like I said, a couple of negatives along the way. But overall, I enjoyed the film. It is an 8.5 out of 10 for me. Do go into it knowing that it's not perfect, but overall, I feel like if you're an Edgar Wright fan or like the overall Running Man source material, I think you'll be pretty happy with this because it's pretty interesting on both sides of the coin there. So it is an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I recommend seeing this new Running Man movie.